Hi, good day everyone. I am Sasirekha Kandasamy from Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia. Today, I am going to present my research on the impact of debriefing strategy in ESL online classroom. This study explores the impact of debriefing in ESL online classroom in an urban national primary school in Malaysia. This paper pursues the impact of a debriefing strategy using exit ticket to assist successful learning in online ESL classroom, as online learning is not as effective as physical classroom learning. 50 Year 5 students and 11 English language teachers were chosen for this study. A mixed method approach was implemented to gauge teachers' perception on debriefing in an ESL online classroom in the process of learning. The students were equally divided into two groups. The group that had a debriefing session after a lesson received a higher score than the control group. Teachers are able to give sufficient explanation related to their understanding on debriefing and the importance of it in the classroom. To understand teachers' perception towards debriefing as a tool in ESL online classroom, a yes and no questions were generated and analyzed using chi-square analysis. Collaboration, reflective thinking, critical thinking, and understanding effortlessly accomplished among students through debriefing. As we go through the learning process, it involves making sense on the lessons taught or experienced by individual learners. Therefore, it is important to utilize a tool in a lesson or in a classroom to enhance understanding by students. According to Watkins, these learning experiences could be increases through reflective practices and active involvement during the lesson. According to Dennison and Kirk, debriefing indicates to the primary objective of the activity. In an article by Lederman further explained that debriefing is a form of discussion by learners. It is also an analysis of experience, evaluating and integrating lessons learned into one's intellect and awareness. It is a useful tool that can be used by teachers to encourage active participation by students as well as increase their understanding. Additionally, by using reflection in debriefing, students can go further than just critical thinking and aims towards higher objective reasoning skills. So, in this study, the focus is more on the impact of debriefing in online learning. The importance and understanding of this online teaching have gained importance in the present time after the COVID-19 pandemic due to social distancing measures and stay-at-home lockdown initiated by the government to control the spread of infections. The current pandemic has revolutionized the education sector. Schools were closed and teaching and learning has transformed its form from physical classroom to virtual online classroom. It is considered that online learning is not as effective as physical classroom learning because a teacher would not be able to detect if the students learn the learning and able to expand their learning. Exit ticket offer teachers with the facility to gauge students' understanding a topic or lesson. Exit tickets also help students to self-reflect in comprehending the lesson that they have learned. Lastly, exit tickets teach students to think critically, which is vital for future learning. This study aimed to achieve the students' learning development in online classroom and the impact of learning the students experience in their online classroom by using a debriefing strategy. This study is significant to highlight the debriefing strategy engaging the learning outcomes in the online ESL classroom. It is significant to distinguish the impact and effectiveness of debriefing in learning for Malaysian primary school pupils, particularly in online classroom during this pandemic. It is substantial to prove that debriefing will assist the pupils to reflect their learning and develop their learning in a language classroom. This study intends to answer 3 research questions. The first one is, what is the impact of debriefing in online ESL classroom? Number 2, how does debriefing gives opportunity to students to discover their learning and develop their learning in ESL online classroom? And the last question is, what is the teacher's perception on debriefing in the process of teaching and learning? When we look at the past studies, the literature review that has been conducted on debriefing, the first is CORPS, Learning Styles and Learning Environments. One of the ways to achieve effective distribution of an online course on learner outcomes is to get a learning style framework integrated into the teaching and learning, such as CORPS 1984 Learning Styles Inventory. According to CORPS, there are 4 learning styles, which are accommodating, assimilating, converging, and diverging. Each of these learning styles and has their own characteristics. Next will be Warburton's Technologies in Use framework. While creating online course activities and delivery, the correlation between technology, pedagogy, and students in the e-learning environments to the learning consequences is complicated to unlock for a course instructor. Having a framework such as Warburton's Interpreting Technology in Use could assist course instructors to draw that association. Next will be, what are the contributions of debriefing to learning? So debriefing is also a chance for feedback to participants, not only from the teachers but also from their fellow participants or an observer. Value feedback is one of the key factors in the learning curve. This theory was introduced by Newell and Rosenblum in 1981. To add in, John Dewey in 1933 initiated the notion of reflective thinking as learning, considering the methods as not only an intellectual activity but also an emotional one. Next will be reflective learning and debriefing as a teaching learning strategy. Debriefing is designed to encourage reflection, inspiring students to evaluate their own theories and think about how to improve or expand more skillful practice. In 1997, Scanlon and Chernomos discovered 3 phases of reflection, which are awareness, critical analysis, and new perspective. Even though the significance of utilizing reflective learning to educate students to employ what they have learned from one situation to the next in the context of critical thinking and decision making is well documented. Furthermore, debriefing is designed to encourage reflection, inspiring students to evaluate their own theories and think about how to improve or expand more skillful practice. In 1983, Sean has stated that debriefing offers prospects to promote reflective learning, encompassing the ability to think in action as well as think on action. This is very essential, especially during this pandemic where online classroom has been conducted. A mixed method approach was implemented in the study. A qualitative and quantitative research method applied to obtain the findings comprehensively. A semi-structured interview questions has been designed and an interview session was conducted with 11 English language teachers to attain their perceptions on debriefing in the learning process in their classrooms. The participants of the study were 50 students from year 5 from a national primary school located in an urban area in Selangor, along with 11 English language teachers chosen from the same school. The time duration of the study was 3 weeks. Participants in the study were divided into 2 groups with equal number, 25, with one group conducted a debriefing session for a subject chosen and the other group was a control group which has no debrief, but only receive the lesson content through traditional teaching through online for the same subject. The results from this experiment is examined by using exit ticket in the form of Google form and by also comparing the test scores between two groups. The data collected for qualitative method is through semi-structured interviews and exit ticket in the form of Google form, whereas quantitative methods are the test scores, questionnaires, yes or no questions, and Likert scale. All the data was compiled using Microsoft Excel and analyzed using SPSS. The statistical analysis used a t-test, chi-square test in questionnaire, and yes or no statements, as well as chi-square or Pearson correlation on the Likert scale. Next, I will go on with my findings. This is the results for the first questions. The impact of debriefing strategy in ESL online classroom. The result from this experiment was examined by using exit ticket in the form of Google form and by also comparing the test scores between two groups. The test scores are shown in the chart. The highest score a student can achieve is 20/20. The group that has a debriefing session received a higher score than the control group. The debrief group students gained more confidence in lesson and showed satisfied responses in their exit ticket. These activities assisted the students to reflect and to give their understanding on their learning. So consequently, students participated actively and comprehend what they were learning, and this permitted them to generate time to reflect on their own learning. The debriefing strategy has a great impact as it encourages and increases students' venture, motivation, and performance. Next, to answer my second research question, debriefing gives opportunity to students to discover their learning in ESL online classroom. This study recognized that debriefing gave students the prospect to dwell on and synthesize the content from a lesson learned. They were able to discover what they have learned and how they learned it, and then consider what they should do next to stretch and grow that learning beyond classroom. When teachers were able to allocate time for a debrief, students had the opportunity to customize the lesson and establish their knowledge on the content learned. Especially during this pandemic, where physical classes has been swapped with online classes, teachers were not able to identify students' learning, as well as students were not able to identify their understanding of the lesson and track their learning progress. From this research, the test score from figure 1 demonstrated debriefing is apt to use in online classroom as a process of helping the students to reflect on their learning and deepen their understanding. Besides, debriefing enables students to share what they learned, to summarize what the learning meant to them, and provided the teacher with the opportunity to review what the students did not understand very well and connect with their learning objectives. Next, in order to answer my third question, teachers' perception on debriefing strategy in ESL online classroom, 20 questions were designed to understand the perception of teachers in debriefing strategy in ESL online classroom. All 11 English language teachers answered yes unanimously for questions number 4, 6, 14, 15, 20, 26 and 34. This is shown in the chart. The answer yes is chosen more frequently than no for all the questions, except question 30. Do you think pupils understand the importance of debriefing? In which 6 teachers voted no. To determine if there is a significant association or relationship between the answer yes and no, chi-square test was used to test the two answers. From analysis in R, chi-square test has p-value 0.0004226. Therefore, there is a significant association or relationship between the answer yes and no in this questionnaire. From the yes and no answers, we can conclude that All 11 English language teachers have previous background on using debriefing in the classroom. Teachers are able to give sufficient explanation related to their understanding on debriefing and the importance of it in the classroom. This is expected and consistent with the teacher's background, education, and past experience. Although teachers think that debriefing is important and could assist both teachers and students in the learning process, students may not give positive outcome through lack of participation. This might be caused by lack of interest in debriefing or the lesson itself, or they do not understand on the importance of debriefing. Likert scale is also used in several questions in the questionnaire to gauge teachers' perception on debriefing in ESL online classroom. It has been shown in the chart below from question 40 to 44. For this analysis, the 11 teachers were categorized in two groups, one with less than 10 years of teaching experience and one with more than 10 years of teaching experience. For this analysis, the 11 teachers were categorized in two groups, with one with less than 10 years of teaching experience labeled as L10 and one with more than 10 years of teaching experience labeled as M10. In figure 3, as you can see, their scores from questions with Likert scale are added together and a box plot was generated. The scores were directly taken as it is with strongly disagree as number 1 and strongly agree as number 4. There are only 4 scales in this analysis. From the box plot, we can see that teacher with L10 has the tendency to score higher than the teachers in M10. The black line that runs through the middle of the box shows the median score of both groups, L10 33, M10 30. Meanwhile, the average score for both groups, L10 has the average of 34.86, meanwhile M10 has the average of 31.5. The p-value for Wilcoxon rank sum test is not significant, where the p-value is 0.3288. Therefore, even though the group L10 has the tendency to score higher than M10, the differences in their scores are not significant. It is vital to note that the number of respondents in the study is 11, and thus this greatly impact the result of this analysis. Debriefing in education, especially in schools in Malaysia, has not been implemented yet. There are diverse debriefing methods that can be applied in education field, particularly in schools, and evidence indicated it is the most effective strategy to improve learning and teaching. The results from the study contributed the knowledge and strategies for effective debriefing methods in ESL online classroom. Debriefing between students are vital in online classroom to identify students' learning and teaching, as they can develop learners' learning consequences as well as performance competences, critical thinking and problem solving. Therefore, it is necessary to educate the teachers in schools the responsible for developing debriefing in their lesson and allocate some debriefing time with their students. Besides, debriefing strategy was given a wholly brand new dimension through this study. This is because review or debrief exercises have been restricted to students. Students were not given an opportunity to reflect their own learning and improve their learning. Debriefing in online classroom enable teacher to portray a strategy and accomplish the students' learning goals in the online classroom using exit ticket. This was more impactful for the students to reflect their own learning and expand their learning beyond classroom. This also served as an opportunity for the teacher to offer evaluative feedback to the students on their accomplishment and involvement during the online class. Engaging students in the post-activity discussion helped the entire class to contribute their own personal insights with their peers and then to build upon their learning from each other's experiences. Besides enhanced students' learning, it is also found to be useful in recognizing what went well, why it went well, what went wrong, and why it went wrong in online classroom as the interaction between student and teacher constrained. In this way, teachers were competent to support their teaching approaches and practices to enhance the teaching and learning process in online classroom. Generally, debriefing strategy significantly used to recapitulate the subject, assess the interpersonal skills, and to distinguish the thinking process of the students. When teachers applied good debriefing strategy within their classes, it is beneficial for them to persist engaged in their lesson and to comprehend students' understanding. Debriefing strategy carried out during the online class helped broaden the students' viewpoint and aided them with their thinking process about the world with an entirely different paradigm. It is highly recommended that debriefing should be used in Malaysian schools, particularly in English language classrooms. Good management practice begins on the first day of school with carefully organized, systematic plans for accomplishing classroom tasks and activities. More time should be allowed for students to reflect their own learning, as this can be helpful for them to monitor their learning progress. Finally, teachers should try using debriefing strategy in the classroom in order to find out the effectiveness of a teaching strategy. So, it is important to implement debrief in classroom to gauge students' understanding of the lesson learned. With that, I end my presentation today. Thank you.